Since living in Colombia, Michael and I, along with my brother Marshall and sister-in-law Mari, have traveled several times along this road, which is known as Ruta 90, that stretches between Barranquilla, where we live, towards the beach town of Santa Marta, which is more than a 2-hour drive away. Mari told us about the unfortunate ecological devastation that was a result of the installation of Ruta 90 and the decades of research and work that have gone into undoing the damage initially caused by connecting these major cities. I found this topic really interesting and I wanted to do my own research and share it with the channel. Please enjoy this footage that Michael took out of the front window while we were driving along the route. The articles I am reading from are all linked below in the description box. What you are looking at here out of the front window of our car is the Ciénaga Grande de Santa Marta. Ciénaga is the Spanish word for lagoon. This is the most productive estuarine ecosystem in the world, and it serves as a mode of interconnection in a complex hydrological network linking Colombia's principal waterway, the world's highest coastal mountain range, and the Caribbean Sea. For millennia, this system has existed in a dynamic balance that allowed life to flourish. The specific properties of the brackish water make it incredibly productive and important. More than 130 species of fish call the Ciénaga Grande home, along with 200 species of birds, manatees, 18 other mammals, 26 reptiles, 3 species of mangroves, and hundreds of other types of plants and trees. The Ciénaga Grande Delta Lagoon Complex encompasses around 20 interconnected lagoons and hundreds of square miles of mangroves. To the east is the towering Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta mountain range, which itself is a biodiversity hotspot and a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve. 3 rivers rise in the highlands of the Sierra and feed directly into the Ciénaga Grande with fresh water and rich sediments. The mountains also contain forests and glaciers, all located within the territories of indigenous peoples. Running along the west is the Magdalena River, Colombia's longest and most important waterway. You've probably seen the Magdalena River if you have watched any of our daily vlogs while living in Colombia. The Ciénaga Grande is part of the Magdalena Delta system, which drains into the Caribbean Sea to the north, quite close to where we are living in Barranquilla, and it connects to the river through natural channels that bring in flows of fresh water and sediments. The fresh water from the channels and the Sierra's rivers is critical to the health and balance of the Ciénaga Grande, whose semi-arid hydroclimate experiences much more evaporation on average than precipitation. The Ciénaga is recognized internationally for its beauty and value, but it has suffered decades of degradation. Human alteration of its dynamic hydrology and the obstruction of essential points of connection have led its mangroves and aquatic species to suffer devastating mass die-offs. At the same time, the traditional people who have long lived in harmony with the ecoregion have experienced brutality, exploitation, and the denigration of their traditional knowledge. The decades-long deterioration of the Ciénaga Grande began as an extension of the banana epoch of the 1920s, when multinational corporations like the United Fruit Company, in collaboration with local authorities of Colombia, incentivized and exploited large banana plantations. This region along the western Sierra foothills near the Ciénaga Grande became known as the Banana Zone, and its complex history inspired the magical realism of the fictional town of Macondo in Gabriel Garcia Marquez's novel 100 Years of Solitude. But the reality was far from magical. Powerful plantation owners diverted and contaminated water from the rivers that feed into the Ciénaga Grande and blocked the Sierra's indigenous peoples from making their traditional pilgrimages. In the 1950s, a road was built to connect the cities of the Ciénaga and Barranquilla to facilitate the exportation of bananas to the United States. This cut off the natural communication between the Ciénaga and the Caribbean Sea. Towns began to spring up alongside the road, bringing increasing deforestation and human waste, and thus began the wide-scale alteration of the hydrological and socio-ecological dynamics of the Ciénaga Grande. Mangroves provide many important ecosystem services. They ensure water quality, prevent coastal erosion, provide refuge for many species, and capture carbon. Their degradation in the Ciénaga led to cascading negative impacts for the entire ecosystem. Over the decades, these die-offs increased in severity and frequency, with approximately 55 to 60% of the mangrove forests lost. Upwards of 70% of the fish were lost as well. This ecological disaster caused enormous suffering for the peaceful Palafito fishermen and their families, a situation exacerbated by Colombia's prolonged civil war and notorious history of drug trafficking. The fishermen lived in fear for a long time, and many of them left the area never to return as a result of civil strife and assault. For more than 200 years, traditional amphibious Palafito communities have lived within the Ciénaga Grande in floating villages. Artisanal fishing with traditional hand-woven nets called atarayas has been the foundation of their life and livelihood. They have lived through the devastation of the Ciénaga and understand it better than anyone. Policymakers and researchers, both national and international, have drastically overlooked this traditional ecological knowledge of the Palafitos in their many failed plans for the Ciénaga Grande. The Palafitos hold knowledge and a capacity to participate in protecting the Ciénaga Grande, and they hold constitutionally guaranteed rights to life and livelihood, which are frequently neglected by designated government entities. For an example, the opportunity to build capacity within the communities for monitoring water quality and fisheries has been largely neglected. The Ciénaga Grande, though largely degraded and ignored, is not lacking in formal protective status, although that status exists in part in name only. At the national level, there are the Ciénaga Grande de Santa Marta Flora and Fauna Sanctuary and the Isla de Salamanca Parkway National Park. At the international level, the Ciénaga Grande has been declared a Ramsar protected wetland, a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve, and an AICA bird conservation area, all designations that, in theory, require the Colombian government to protect it. Countless environmental protection laws do exist in Colombia, but many of the best ideas and policies remain only on paper. In the 1990s, an ambitious integrated research and planning project for the restoration of the Ciénaga Grande was put into action, known as the Pro-Ciénaga. Much was learned over this period regarding the fisheries, water quality, and mangrove forests. Scientists also identified the impacts of agrochemicals like phosphorus coming from the banana zone of the Sierra, a zone which was also beginning to host water and chemical-intensive palm oil plantations. Starting in 1996, 5 channels connected to the Magdalena River were dredged, allowing fresh water to flow back into the Ciénaga Grande. The relatively sudden rush of fresh water, aided by an El Niño, shocked certain important components of the complex interdependent hydrology and ecology, such as eutrophication controlling oysters. But at the same time, many positive signs were seen for mangrove recovery. The hypersaline soils returned to a tolerable level in certain areas. Since 1999, accountability and action have been few and far between. Channels have frequently become blocked by sediment, while agrochemicals and diminished water flow from the Sierra keep killing the fish. In 2017, a damning report was published, officially placing the Ciénaga Grande on the Ramsar Montreux list of wetlands at extreme risk, which brought some renewed interest and investment into the ecoregion. The impact of this renewed international interest remains to be seen, but there have been major governmental changes within Colombia. It's a testament to the resilience of the Ciénaga Grande that this complex ecosystem remains productive at all and still has restoration potential after decades of interconnected threats. But resilience only goes so far, and the ecosystem can still reach a critical point of no return. If the Ciénaga is going to recover, it needs long-term integrated research and planning with local community participation and even guardianship, which has a record of success in other local and indigenous-led endeavors. Most notably, the region needs rigorous mangrove restoration studies to demonstrate how much soil salinity each species can resist and what outcomes are possible in terms of carbon capture and fishery recovery. This research would need to be run in parallel with plans for periodically dredging the channels based on monitoring and alerts from the palafitos to maintain a healthy, dynamic hydrological equilibrium for the Ciénaga Grande.